Hello everybody. For this video we are looking at the income and asset calculation worksheet, and we are specifically talking about using this worksheet when dealing with pay stubs for this video. So one of the first things I want to talk about is when you open up the income and assets calculation worksheet, make sure you look down at the bottom to the tabs, and we want to go to the income calculation pay stub. We discussed income calculations for the employment verification on another video. But before we jump into the actual worksheet, I want to take a look at our pay stubs. So there's a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to pay stubs. First of all, every pay stub is a little bit different, but they have pretty much the same basic information, so you want to just make sure you glance through that, make any notes that you have if there's questions, just to make sure you understand it all before we start entering our information. I've highlighted a few things here for you. So we can see on every pay stub we have a beginning, period beginning, period ending, and a pay date. The period ending and the pay date are going to come into play on our worksheet, so we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then we also want to make sure we're looking at the gross pay. So here we've got our regular earnings of $14.27 an hour, and then it shows us our gross pay, so we're going to need this gross pay information. You also want to take a look and just check for other things that might cause further questions. For example, I see on this one that we have a 401k and a checking account, so we just want to make sure that we've talked with the applicant or resident or looked on the application to verify that they've listed those as assets. So that's one thing that we want to check on. And then we also want to make sure that we have the correct number of pay stubs. The general rule of thumb for pay stubs is that we want to cover at least 6 weeks. So for example, this one, we start looking at some of the dates. On the first one here, we've got a pay date of 8/10/2018, so this is our most recent pay stub. Go down to the next one, pay date of 7/27/2018. So if you were to pull up a calendar, you'd see that this person gets paid every 2 weeks, so that's going to be bi-weekly. So we've collected 4 pay stubs for this. It's also important to look through each individual pay stub, because sometimes there would be something listed on one pay stub that might not be on another, such as a bonus. So you just want to make sure you go through and take a look at that. We'll just kind of glance it through here. Once we do that, we can start entering our pay stub information onto the worksheet. So we're going to flip over here. Up at the top of our income calculator, I've got the household member's name is Michelle Gardner. I've got a unit number, the move-in recertification date, and the set-aside. The top couple of boxes deal with annualized non-wage income. So that's going to be things like Social Security, pension, gift income, child support. We're not going to deal with any of that on this particular video. We're just talking about pay stubs. So we want to go down to the section below. My emails here. Alright, and so one thing I want to point out is that home regulations require us to calculate 2 full months of pay history. So make sure if you're dealing with a home-specific unit that we have at least 2 full months of pay history. So we are basically going to just go in and input this information straight from our pay stub. So I've already done a portion of this just for data entry purposes. So we've got our check date of 8/10 with the amount of $10.55.98. Then our next pay stub is 7/27/18 with an amount of $15.48.30, and so on and so forth. So I've entered in my 4 pay stubs. One of the things we want to look at, though, you can see there's a section here for raises. So I want to look at my pay stubs again. So I can see here that I've got a pay rate of $14.27. So I just want to go through and check and make sure it's all correct. So I can see that on some previous pay stubs, the amount was $13.85. So at some point, I've had a raise, so I'm going to need to deal with a raise. So first thing I'm going to do is use my raise calculator. So I'm going to put in the current rate, which is $14.27, I believe. Yes, $14.27 is my current rate. And then the old rate is $13.85. So that gives me a raise percentage of 3%. Don't get confused by this rate multiply or raise multiplier. We're not really going to use that at this point. We're just looking at the raise percentage. Now back over on our columns, under the pay stubs, we need to enter that information to any of the pay stubs where the raise was not in play. So if we go back and look at our dates, so I've got my most recent has 14/27, and then the next one is 14/27. And here is where we had the change. So we had $13.85, and the end date for this period was 7/7. So they were being paid $13.85 through this pay period. So I can go up here and see that the most recent 2 pay stubs that I have the increased amount. So I need to go to the oldest pay stubs that do not have the raise, and I need to add in the 3%. That's just going to help to annualize the income over the next 12 months. So I put in that 3%, it changes the amounts over here, and it gives me a total for all of my check stubs. Shows me the number of pay stubs used, the average pay stub, and then I need to select the frequency of pay. So I said this one was bi-weekly. So if we're talking bi-weekly, that's going to be 26 pay stubs. Other pay, if we had bonuses, commissions, things like that, we would enter that here. Alright, so that gives us our anticipated annualized gross income. So it's $31,647.98. Now we also have to deal with the year-to-date, the gross year-to-date. So we're going to go over to this box here, and we've got some instructions here. So the first one is the date of employment. So down here under date of employment, it says choose the one that applies. So enter 1/1 if working prior to the first of this year. B is enter a start date of first pay period of this year if known. C is enter actual start or hire date if they started working after the first of this year. So for this example, this resident actually has been working there for quite a while and was working there before the first of this year. So we're simply going to put in 1/1. Alright, enter the date from the last pay stub. See instructions below. So if we use A, then we should use A on the second one. So we used A, enter 1/1 if working prior to the first of this year. So it tells us for the next step, use the paycheck date for employees who began working prior to 1/1 of the current year. So I'm going to go find my paycheck date for my most recent pay stub, and that was 8/10/2018. So I would put that information in. Now, just a little side note, you can see down here at the bottom that if we are in North Carolina, we have to use the current pay period end date. So you want to make sure you look at the difference. We've got a pay period end date on this example of 8/4 and a pay date of 8/10. So if I was doing this in North Carolina, which technically I know this pay stub is from North Carolina, I would use 8/4, not 8/10. But everyone else, you'd use 8/10. So then I need to enter the gross income from the last check stub. So this is my most recent check stub. If I go here to my gross earnings, I want to look at their gross year to date. So I can see that amount here is $18,597.59. So I'll put in $18,597.59. Alright, it gives me an average weekly income. I need to select the number of weeks per year. So this applicant works full-time, so 52 weeks a year. I mean, not full-time, they're not seasonal, so they work the entire year, 52 weeks per year. And then we've got this information down here for the raise. Well, this can get a little confusing, so I want to make sure that we all understand this. So we do have a raise that we were dealing with. We've got this 3% raise. But it's a raise that has happened in the past. So we're not going to put in an effective date on this one because it's a past raise. We are going to go ahead and put in the 3% here, and that's going to add just a 3% overall to this total. Now, if this 3% raise happened to put this applicant or resident over income, we'd probably want to talk with compliance and have them look at it a little bit closer, because that 3% is actually a little bit over what it should be, because we've already got that percentage added in for a portion over here. So make sure that you check with that if it happens to put them over income. We are simply putting in the 3% just to protect the file. For most situations, it probably won't even make a difference, because actually on this one we can see that the year-to-date is lower than our anticipated, so we're going to use the anticipated income anyways. Alright, then we also have, just like we had on the other one, we have the oldest form verification in the file, just to kind of give us an idea of how long we have to get this taken care of before it expires. So we'll say that this was 8/17, and it shows us the 90-day file expiration date and the 120-day file expiration date. And that's pretty much it. So we would carry over the largest amount, the $31,647.98, to put on our tick. We would want to print this sheet out because we'll be uploading it into Docs Management under our calculations. And then we're also going to have copies of our pay stubs and any other documentation that we needed, such as maybe a self-affidavit from the resident or applicant. If there was something they were explaining about pay stubs, we need to have that information on there as well. And that's pretty much it for the pay stubs.